Jazzcast Pros.
Well, if this is your first time coming to one of my lives, I am Dr. Pamala Brown-Grinion. So happy to be here with you this morning. And this is my live podcast recording for the Grace and Grind podcast. So welcome in. Where are you from? I'm from Rochester, New York. And what I do is I help people to transform their lives. That's pretty much what I do. It doesn't matter if you are a mom or a C-suite executive. I help people to understand their emotional symptoms from their traumatic experiences. And I help people to change their behavioral responses. You're from Nigeria. Well, welcome, Nigeria. I'm so glad you're on. I'm so glad. Stay put because we're going to have some good stuff. So what I do basically is I've combined my trauma-informed coaching, my etiquette training, and my leadership development coaching and training under one umbrella, and I call it emotional etiquette. And so here we have conversations about all of those things. And I'm getting a lot of response. Hey, Trina Pink, thank you for coming back, darling. I get a lot of responses from people saying that, this is really, really helping me. And that just blesses my soul. But first, let me tell you guys now, although I'm a trauma informed practitioner and I talk about traumatic experiences and the symptoms, this podcast is for education, inspiration, motivation, training and coaching only. Okay. I am a trauma informed coach, practitioner, and trainer. I am not a licensed mental health professional. So if you feel like that's what you need, you can get that too. Or, okay. And, right. So you can get in where you fit. Okay. So you guys ready to jump right in? Because we are talking about after you vanquish the ghost in your nursery. Now, do I need to explain to our newbies? Hey, Dita. Okay. And I had professional counseling. So I had counseling, coaching, and calendar, the things that I told you guys to do. I did that. All right. So I'm a byproduct of my own work. So let's recap quickly on the first. I think we did the first 5 already, and then I'll jump into 6. So the first thing that you do or that you should see after you vanquish the ghost in the nursery, after you've vanquished, okay, they may not have vanquished them all, but you've done some great work in last week. You've done some great work. So after you've vanquished the ghost in the nursery, it's time to reclaim your emotional space. Okay. You have removed some elements out of you that you no longer need, that no longer serves you. It's not doing anything good for you. We have removed those negative emotions, right? Now we have to add in something new. So when the ghost is no longer directing your emotions, you can finally reclaim your freedom to think and feel and to do and to make good choices, not choices based on your emotions, choices that are based on truth. And remember, the truth is what's happening right now in this moment, not what happened to you in the past, what's going on right now. And the example that I use for that is I shared a memory with you guys that I had about something traumatic that happened to me in the military 40 years ago. And I had to give pause and make space for it so that I could heal, so that I can go take myself through all of the things that I'm telling you, right? And I was in a pickup truck with a drill sergeant. You guys know the rest of the story. And because the younger Pam, the unhealed Pam, that little part of her that is still in there, is familiar with trauma, and her trauma response is resorting to the rabbit hole, withdrawing, right? That's her response. When that memory came back to me, like fully, when it came back to me, the little girl in me, that small part of her that still resides, she's powerful. And she tried to pull me back into that familiar space because that was my comfort zone. That was my coping mechanism. That was my space of safety, right? But the adult Pam said, no, no, no. I know that I have the power to control how this memory of this experience shows up in my life. how much power I give it, how I respond to it, and how it impacts me. So I chose how much power I gave it, how I responded to it, how it impacts me, and how it showed up. I controlled that because I have the power to. And I gave myself almost 2 weeks to deal with it. And then I said, okay, enough is enough. And then I was fine after that. And it literally no longer haunts me. But I had to take control over the situation. I could not just let it just kind of move in my emotions and recreate that negative emotional loop that I used to live on as a little girl. I have already interrupted that loop. So I'm not going back there. Okay. I'm not going back there. So that's not a way that the enemy can penetrate and get me because I'm good with that. That's not something that we're not doing that anymore. Heal from that, right? So I gave you guys some questions and I ask you to ask yourself, what does emotional peace look like for me now? Hey Mars, good morning, cousin. What does it look for me now? What does it look like for me now? Okay. And then number two, the next thing that we should be doing is rebuilding our identities, right? When the ghost's voice is silenced, your authentic identity begins to rise up in you stronger, clearer, and align with who you are truly becoming now, today. It's no longer based on what happened in the past. Okay. It's based on your truth of today. So you're rebuilding your identity, not from what you went through. You're building your identity on where you are now in life. It's no longer the mask. We've put away the mask. Okay. It's now based on where am I now? Am I living based on my wounds or am I living based on the new wisdom that I found when I vanquished the ghost in the nursery about my truths, about my situation? Okay. Number three, we should be reconstructing our emotional patterns. And I explained to you that we should be responding and not reacting. How do you respond? You have to be self aware in order to respond. And we talked about self awareness for a lot. Let's see. Would you say that first question again? I had to run for a notebook. Listen, you have got to bring your journals when you coming in here with me, okay? Because yeah, I give a lot of questions. So, in number one, reclaim your emotional space. I only gave you the one question. What does emotional peace look like for me now? If you go on my Facebook page, you can watch them all fully and you can capture all the questions. This is just a quick recap. And number two, where we were talking about rebuilding your identity. And one of the questions is, who am I without my survival patterns? Who am I without my old survival patterns? Okay. So, number two, when the ghost voice is silenced, your authentic identity begins to rise up and it gets stronger, it gets clearer, and it is aligned with who you truly are. Okay. And the question with that is, who am I without the survival patterns? Number three, we should be reconstructing our emotional patterns to learn to respond rather than reacting. Okay. Learn to respond rather than reacting. Now let's talk about reactive first. Reactive is when you don't stop to think. You just, right? You go 10. You don't process what you're feeling. Example, when my best friend told me, Pam, you don't, I prayed about this. I prayed about this. And I know she loves me and I know she's only going to tell me the truth. And she said, you're afraid to commit to yourself because I was supposed to be on here with you guys since 2020. I heard this in 2019. That's 5 years of disobedience and on a different track and wondering why it's not working. Okay. Wondering why it's not working. Hey, Manny, thank you for joining. Okay. Now, reactive is when you're explosive, 0 to 10, like that. Responding is when you understand that you can't always give a response. You can't always answer in the moment. You have to feel what your body is sensing. That is the self-awareness. What is your body sensing? What are you feeling? Is it something that's raising up in you? Are you feeling anger? Are you feeling fear? Are you feeling anxious? What are you feeling? When my girlfriend said that to me, I knew it was the truth, but I didn't like her saying it to me. But when I really processed it and I said, is this somebody that loves me and knows me? Yes and yes. Is this the truth? Right now in my now, is this the truth? Yes. So the next day I got on live because that's what I wasn't committing to. So now the next day I got on live, which was uh Thanksgiving Eve, the 26th, and I've been on live every day since, except Saturday and Sunday. The first week I did Saturday and Sunday because I just needed to do a week. I needed to prove to myself that I can do 7 days. You're welcome, Claire. And then after that, it's Monday through Friday, right? Responding, taking the time to, not based on your feelings, not based on how it's making you feel, okay? It's based on what is sound, what is reasonable, what is wise, what is truth. And then you make a decision. It's not just, and sometimes understand you may have to come back. You know, I don't have the capacity to answer that question right now, or it's not a good time for me to answer that question right now, or can we take a pause and come back to that? Can I come back to you with that? To give yourself time to settle so you're not reactive. Okay. When you're being reactive, it's because you're sensing something that is familiar. The little girl or little boy, that unhealed little person in you is sensing something that causes them to feel what they're feeling. Okay. And it connects with what was familiar in the past, even though that's no longer happening. But because you haven't resolved it and you haven't learned how to change your behavioral responses to the emotional symptoms of the traumatic experience, we become explosive and responsive instead of taking our time to settle, think, pause, right? Give space, all of those good things. All right. One of the questions I asked you to ask yourself is, what emotional habits no longer serve me? What emotional habits no longer serve me? Number 4, align your behaviors with your becoming, your new becoming, because we're shedding stuff, right? We're shedding stuff and we're living in our now, in the now, in our truth now, right now. Okay. We're living in our truth right now. So align your behaviors with who you are becoming, not who you were in the past. Okay. Very important to understand the difference in that. It's who you are becoming in this transformation that we're going on as a collective. We're on this journey together. Now, when you are aligning your behaviors with your new becoming, you have to identify that it isn't just who you say you are, it's who you show up as, right? So you can't send your representative out front to show up for you and think that that's authentic and true. It's not. Okay, it's not. So it's who you show up as. All right. When your behaviors begin to reflect your healed self, your future starts to materialize in real time. That ties right into what we were talking about today. When your behaviors begin to reflect your healed self, not the old self. Because remember, the old self is trauma bound. The old self, you can't feel, you can't think, you can't listen, you can't hear from God, you can't pray, you can't get into your meditative state, you can't sit still, you can't be quiet, you can't sleep. Just we're moving away from that. Okay, we are moving away from that because we're changing our behavioral responses to the emotional symptoms of the traumatic experiences. You guys with me? Let me know you're with me. All right. And one of the questions that I ask you is, where in my life am I still acting from my old identity rather than my healed one? Where am I acting from my old identity rather than my healed one? And number 5 is, create a new legacy without the ghost dictating your future now. You become the architect of a new emotional lineage. And I was talking to you about, now that we've traced our traumatic genealogy and our emotional genealogy, we know where it came from. And some of it didn't come from us. Some of it came from your parents and your grandparents and other people. And all of it didn't come from what you went through. Some of it is because other people said things or put things on you that wasn't yours to carry. Okay. Now, you can become the architect of your new emotional lineage. And with that, your new self concept is the story that you can tell yourself now. Your new self concept. It's not based on the past. It's not based on what was. No. It's based on right now. All right. So, number 4, we've done. Number 5, you create a new legacy. Without the ghost dictating your future, you now become the architect of a new emotional lineage. All right. Your new self concept is the story you can tell yourself now about who you are now, not about who you were in the past. Okay. Who you are now. So, number 6, you build a life that honors your healing. You build a life that honors your healing. Who builds the life? You build the life that honors your healing. You. All right. Your healed identity begins shaping your outer world. What is that saying? Your inner healed identity begins shaping your outer identity, your routines, your relationships, your environments, your conduct, which is what we're working on. We're working on changing our behavioral responses so that we show up properly, we show up authentically, and we show up as the best version of ourselves. We show up with intentionality. Okay, it's not by happenstance, and it's not because the unhealed little girl or little boy in us rose up and became reactive. We're disciplined. Okay, it's moving with discipline. So you build a life that honors your healing. That means that you decide what your healing looks like and how you're going to portray it in your outer world. You guys always hear me say that because I'm an international etiquette coach, I can teach you how to polish the outside. No questions asked. I can teach you how to polish the outside. But if you don't polish the inside, the polish on the outside is not going to stick. It's not going to last because it's not authentic yet. And it's not authentic yet. It's not authentic yet because we haven't rubbed out some of those spots on the inside that causes our outer polish to dull. So this is why we're doing this kind of work. And this is why I'm walking you guys through this, because it's critical that you go inward first. Okay. Now, your routines. I'm going to tell you about me, not you guys. I'm going to tell you about me. When I was in my unhealed space, I was all over the place. I couldn't think clearly. I didn't have a routine that I could manage. Why? Because my emotions would always come and interrupt the routine, and it would throw the routine off. And if I came out of the rabbit hole for a little bit to try to work the routine, once my emotions showed up, I would end up back in the rabbit hole. I'm not productive in the rabbit hole. That's not a good space for me to be. Emotional maturity is understanding what your truth is right now, understanding that, yes, it can impact me, but I get to choose how I respond and how I show up. And if you're still being explosive and responsive because you have those unhealed spaces, well, that's not emotional maturity. And that's why we're going inward to fix our inner identities, because we need to for our own sake, right? You'll be a much better spouse. You'll be a much better employee. You'll be a much better person for yourself. You'll be a much better parent. You'll be a much better you when you can go inward. And it takes courage. Understand, it takes courage to do this, right? You're not just going to show up in a healed space and change your behavior responses simply because, because you say, I'm just going to do it. No, you got to do the work because it's not going to last. It's not going to last. Okay. So you release relationships, habits, and spaces that conflict with your healing. Again, boundaries. You guys have heard that saying that some people are in your life for a season and some people are in your life for a reason. And the season may not be a lifetime. It may not be a lifetime. You have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with that, especially if relationships causes you to connect with your negative emotions that you're trying to heal from. That's not to say you have to get rid of that person in your life forever, but while you're going through your healing process, it might be a good thing to do simply because it's going to trigger you. And right now, you got to get strong enough so that you can overpower your triggers emotionally, right? If you are in constant contact with people that trigger you, it's going to be difficult to do that. This is not the time to start challenging yourself to see if you can manage the trigger. Wait until you're stronger. You may have to set some boundaries, okay? You may have to release some people totally. I have released some people forever, ever, forever, ever, forever, ever. Okay. I have released some people because it was the best thing to do for my peace. And at 59 years old, believe you me, I'm protecting my peace. Okay. If something is conflicting with my inner healing or throwing me off course, I don't have the capacity to right now because I need all of me for me right now. And that's not selfish. That is selfless self-care for you. Okay. It's not selfish. So don't beat yourself up thinking that if you are the go-to person for everybody in the family and now you can't be because you're trying to do what you need to do for you, that's not selfish. That is not selfish. Sometimes you have to withdraw inward and take care of you. Sometimes you have to take that pause and that break for you. And it is okay. And I know a lot of us, especially women and especially Black women, we were brought up to hold the world on our shoulders. I'm telling you, you don't have to do that. You can take care of you so that you have the strength to carry the part of the world that is your responsibility to carry. Everything is not yours to carry. Okay? Everything is not yours to carry. You may feel like it is, but again, that's feeling. What is the truth? The truth is your kids are adults and they can carry their own stuff. You can't make up for what happened in the past. Can you rebuild? Yes, absolutely. Can you heal together? Yes, absolutely. But you should not be basing your actions on something that happened in the past because that's not the truth right now. And you doing all those things is not making them come around or it's not making them be healed. It's still in them. You're just exhausting yourself with these activities and it's not really doing you or them any good. Okay. Everything is not yours to carry. Understand that, grasp that. All right. It is your responsibility to make sure that your relationships, habits, and spaces are not conflictual with your healing. That's your responsibility. You create the routines that support your emotional and spiritual well-being. Who creates those? You create those. You create those. So if the routine, like my routine is wake up in the morning, I get up around 6:37. I'm not a morning person, right? But because I'm on live at 8 and I'm doing this kind of work and I take it seriously, my window in the morning, my emotional window in the morning, my grounding window in the morning is longer. So when I get up in the morning, I don't pick up my phone and check the time. I can see the time right in front of me on my clock. I don't, because if I pick up my phone, I'm going to start scrolling. So my time in the morning, this is what my routine is that I have to create for me. I wake up in the morning, I lie there for a minute, and I just allow my body to just all the different parts to wake up because I'm 59. You aren't just jumping up out of the bed at 59. You're going to start feeling those little cracks and aches and ticks and things. You're going to feel those things at 59. Okay. So I give myself time to unthaw. I give my body time to unthaw. And I just kind of lie there and just relax. And while my body is unthawing and relaxing, I'm going inward. I'm going inward and I'm having a conversation with myself. Okay, Pam, what do you want to get done today? Well, I have to input that information into the portal for the daycare training that's coming up. I have to do that application for that infant mental health training. I'm grounding myself and I'm letting myself think about what it is that I need to do. What's on my to-do list? right? What do I want to get accomplished? And then after my body unthaws, I stretch. I just stretch because I need to limber and loosen up. And I keep a bottle of water right next to me and I drink my water before I get out of bed. I drink a bottle of water. That's my routine. I wasn't always able to do that because I would not have a restful night's sleep because all of my traumatic stuff would be flooding my brain. And I would get up tired. And so I would lie in bed until the very last minute. And then I would jump up with not enough time to prepare myself to get ready. And then I'm all off kilter for the rest of the day. So I had to create a routine that supports my emotional and spiritual well being. I have my devotion, I have my prayer, right? When it's not like this, I'll take the co host for a walk. My routine. I have to pedal around and walk around because that's when I hear from God when I'm pedaling around. Right? That's my routine. So you have to develop a routine that works for you and your morning for your day that supports your emotional well being. Notice I didn't say I'm lying in bed thinking about I didn't sleep, thinking about all the bad things that happened to me that I haven't healed from, all the I don't have the capacity for that because I'm trying to transform into my totally unique, authentic, best version of myself. And you can't get there dwelling on the past about things that aren't happening to you right now. That's not your truth today. You got to walk this thing out. Okay. And it takes a lot of self discipline to do this. A lot of self discipline. Why? Because this isn't your normal. You're learning how to do it and you're more familiar with your old way. Expect your old way to show up multiple times, but you have to be strong enough to put it to bed. Sometimes you're not going to be. Sometimes I'm not. And then I realize, oh, no, 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 no. Let me get back. Get back. Get yourself back on track, right? Because the familiar pattern will just interject itself, and then before you know it, you're off track. You got to be able to understand when you're off track and put yourself back on track sooner. Like every time, put yourself back on track and don't give up and don't quit and say, well, I've fallen off track, so I must not be able to do it. No, you can do it. Just jump back on. Okay. Good morning, Ruth. Just jump back on and get yourself back on track. Okay. Example. How many times, and this is a question for all of my people that profess salvation. Okay. How many times have you fallen off of salvation and come back? Same thing. You fall off track, but you know your salvation is important. So you come back to your salvation, right? The old way is so well known. Exactly. All the time, Miss Martinez said, all the time, right? How many times do you fall by the wayside with salvation? And then you be like, oh my God, I've fallen off track. Let me get back on track. I've done it a gazillion times, right? But that doesn't mean that my salvation is gone. It just means that I moved away from it. But once I get myself back on track, because salvation is familiar to me, I'm able to get myself back on track, just like you. It's the same thing with your emotional self. When you feel yourself falling back by the wayside to your familiar behaviors and tendencies, you have to say to yourself, right, Kathy, 7 times, 7 times, 7 times, correct. You have to put yourself back on track. Don't give up and say, well, I must not. Don't do that to you because your inner healing is too important. You're too important. Okay. And your inner healing matters and your behavioral responses matter. All right. So you choose the environments that match your rising identity, who you are transforming into. For example, I'm 59. I don't club anymore. Okay. I used to club Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. One night Oak Tree, one night Calabash, one night, you guys know, Cross Keys, one night PIs, you know what I'm saying? Or it might be the one on North. You guys know what I'm saying. Every night it was a theme somewhere at a club. Who's Wiser now? I know you didn't say fams. But you're right. Now, I didn't have any business in FAMS, but I went in there. Okay. I don't do that anymore. Why? Because who I am becoming, that doesn't support. Now, I'm not saying I'm too good for that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I'm not there anymore, right? Now, will I go to a jazz lounge? Absolutely. Will I go to one of these spots if they're having a jazz night? I might, right? Because I like jazz and that's an elevated type of crowd. And that's where I am now. So I am choosing the environments that rise with my elevated identity, right? Right? I've changed my people. The people that I hang out with are, uh, they meet where I am now. Okay. Now, I still got my aces. Don't get me wrong. I still got my people, but I also have a group that are my sister docs because that's where I am right now. So it makes sense that I would have a sister doc circle, right? So you have to choose the environment. Choose. Remember, you have the power. Okay. Choose the environments that match the person that you are becoming, that you're transforming into. All right, folks, that's all we have time for. I thank you so much for joining the Grace and Grind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Pamela Brown-Grinion, and until next time, and always remember to create your totally unique day on purpose.